Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
This week, the Chinese added a new factor to the ongoing troubles in Ladakh. And that's not a factor on the ground, but it's a factor in conversations, in negotiations. What the Chinese did was that one of their spokespersons, anonymous, spoke to the Hindustan Times correspondent in Beijing, Sutirtha Patranabis. It's a story that we published in the print as well because we have a partnership with Hindustan Times. In fact, you might have also seen some of the pictures that our reporters and photographers got, Bismita Askin and Manisha Mondal from Hathras. They appeared in the Hindustan Times as well. So as part of the arrangement, we published that story. And this Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson there said that, look, there will be peace if India agrees to abide by the 1959 claim line, China's 1959 claim line in Ladakh. India rejected that to say that India has never accepted it. India did not accept it. When Zhou Enlai proposed it in 1959, it has been rejected several times after that. So there is no question of India accepting it now. So the Chinese said this, and they've said this before also. In fact, when the Doklam crisis was on in 2017, then too the Chinese have invoked the 1959 claim line, because around that time, thereabouts, there was also some scuffles between Indian border troops and the Chinese border troops in the Pangong Tso area, again in the same area of Fingers, which is seeing troubles now. And then the Chinese spokesperson, Hua Chunying, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, she had said that, look, India should abide by the 1959 Chinese claim line and there will not be any trouble. This is sourced to a Hindu article by Atul Aneja from Beijing, which I am sharing with you. So 1959 claim line is something which the Chinese keep bringing up every now and then. India keeps saying no. So what exactly is this Chinese claim line? It's complicated. It's complicated also because all the maps that we have and the maps we share also will be imprecise. These are not military quality or big cartographic quality maps. These are broad maps, and if you see the lines on these maps, they are drawn with a thick pen. When I say a thick pen, what I mean is that if you see the size of the map and the amount of territory it covers, just the thickness of the nib can make a big difference of territorial claims on this side or the other. So please do not take these maps as precise. Now, some details of this and some explanation we put out in a story by Nainima Basu, who's our diplomatic editor on the print.in, and I will share that story with you. But here is the facts on the ground as far as this line is concerned, in terms of how different it is from the Indian perception of the line of control, what exactly are the Chinese after, and also a little bit of how this concept of the 1959 claim line developed, and how the border dispute in what is called as the Western sector, which is Ladakh, developed between India and China. So first of all, this line came up in 1914 in a way. 1914 is when the big Shimla Convention took place between the Tibetan authorities and the Indian administration, then led by the British, to define the borders of the Himalayas between India and Tibet. It was in that convention that McMahon line was drawn, and some lines in the Western sector were drawn. The lines that India believes matter and that India accepts are the lines that take all of Aksai Chin within India, although there are contrary views that come out from India as well. There's an article, long article, typically as they are, by E.G. Nurani in Frontline, of which I'll give you a link, where he says that maybe this Aksai Chin area was a latter day afterthought or extrapolation by some British officials in the 19th century when the Great Game was on, because they thought that through this route the Russians could come too close to the Indian subcontinent, because remember the Great Game was between the British Empire and the Russian Empire. So they thought the way to secure that right up to Kundun Mountains was to include Aksai Chin in India. That is not the Indian official position. That is not what India accepts. But I'm telling you that that is an argument, and this is a complicated history. I, of course, would go by the Indian official position now. In fact, if you go back until 1950, India was not including Aksai Chin in its maps. That came up 1954 onwards because the relationship between India and China was very good. It was generally believed that the both countries would respect what is called as traditionally acceptable boundaries between them. So, as Nyanema's story also tells us, in 1950, it's a well-known fact, 1950, Nehru made a statement defining the India-China boundaries, where he said in the eastern sector, it is the McMahon line, drawn as part of this summit at Shimla Convention. And in the western sector, he said from Ladakh up to Nepal, the border depends on long usage and custom on both sides. So there was so much trust that jo mera hai wo mera hai, jo tera hai wo tera hai, and let us leave it like that. It is only around 1954 that trouble began to emerge. So Neville Maxwell, who's written a book that is generally seen as quite critical of the Indian position and was banned for some time in India when it was written, but it's a book rich with detail and a lot of maps. Obviously, this has his spin that India does not agree with, and in fact, when the book came out, people like us, people like me also, we were very young, were furious that how is this Britisher saying all these things about India, because he also named the book India's China War. So in that book also he mentions that it is in 1954 that Chinese maps came out which included Aksai Chin, etc. And India began to get worried and made some protests, and India then began issuing its own new maps. So in the Chinese maps in the Ladakh area, Neville Maxwell tells us that the Chinese drew a line which went generally southeast of Karakoram. Karakoram Pass is right up there. Under Karakoram Pass is Daulat Beg Oldi, DBO. To its east, as you know, is Depsang Plains. That is the area the closest to Aksai Chin and to Xinjiang. In fact, next door to Xinjiang. And then it comes south like this, generally running up to Changchenmo River Valley. So that's what he says. But India did not accept it. So 1954. India protested and India produced its own maps. Now, some of that detail you will get with the book by Bertil Lintner, who is also a strategic scholar and who's done a great amount of work on insurgencies in the Himalayan region and insurgencies generally the mountainous region in Northeast India, Myanmar, earlier Burma, etc., but has also worked on India-China relations. Now, Bertil Lintner wrote a book which is titled as if it's a counter to Neville Maxwell. That book is called China's India War, Collision Course on the Roof of the World. In that book, he mentions how India then countered, saying these Chinese maps are wrong. This is the Indian perception of the border. It is 1959 that Zhou Enlai wrote to Jawaharlal Nehru proposing this line, the 1959, this claim line in Ladakh as a border. In fact, Zhou Enlai's first idea was even more radical. Zhou Enlai said that you be where you are, we be where we are, both in the western sector and in the eastern sector, but to keep the peace and to prevent conflict, let both sides agree to withdraw 20 kilometers on its own. Either side withdraws 20 kilometers to its own side, which means there is a 20 plus 20 is a 40-kilometer buffer, lot of buffer. So it doesn't mean that you don't control the area that you had. You can control it. Your civilian officials can be there, your revenue officials can be there, your police can be there, your border police can patrol it also, but unarmed. So get your armed soldiers out 20 kilometers on your side, 20 kilometers on our side. This was not acceptable to India because India thought this gives the Chinese too much of an ingress in the western sector, that is Ladakh, but also in what is now Arunachal and was then Nefa. tactically and strategically, Indian side thought, and quite correctly, that in that area, India has the heights, the high mountains and peaks. The Chinese, they are not in low-lying areas, but they are on the plateau, because that is Tibet. So they can come in flat like this. India has to go up and defend the mountains. So India then loses the defensive barrier, impregnable defensive barrier of the mountains in case Chinese decide to invade Arunachal Pradesh. And second, if the Chinese want to be adventurous, they can bring their forces much faster, because their side is the plains. Indian side is very complicated and very mountainous, and with very narrow valleys, etc., etc., and very poor infrastructure. So this will put India at a disadvantage. So India did not agree to the 20-kilometer idea. Then Chau En-lai's idea in the western sector was that, look, this is the line that I have drawn. Initially, the line that is sent really was not well defined. So if you see a book by our former ambassador to China, who then served as foreign secretary to India, and who also then served as national security advisor, and is a brilliant scholar, Shiv Shankar Menon. He's also a very fluent Chinese speaker. The book he has written, Choices Inside the Making of India's Foreign Policy. He says that this 1959 line that Chau talked about, or Chau En-lai talked about, Chinese pronunciations have varied over time. Chau En-lai talked about, this was imprecise. This was just mentioning a few points here and there without a connecting line. So you know what happens in a negotiating position, when you think you are on the stronger side, you tend to be less specific, because you think then finally when the fine print is done and the last final lines are drawn, you can benefit from it. So the first one was like that, but later in 1960, when there were negotiations between the two sides, when Nehru invited Chau En-lai to India for a summit, a failed summit, although after that there was a joint statement where the two sides said the officers from both sides would meet and they will look at our historical records and maps and see where the positions are. At that point, the Chinese did give precise locations and coordinates of where they thought the 1959 line was. So that is the complicated story of the 1959 line. But as we know, India never accepted it. 1962, the Chinese decided to go to war. And when that war happened, the Chinese came up to generally what they saw as their 1959 claim line. They took all the territory up to there and frankly did not take territory beyond that, some of which was theirs for the taking. I don't think they could have walked into Chushul because Indian defenses were well set in Chushul by then. But if they so wanted, they could have taken Daulat Beg Oldi, because India had a very tiny garrison in Daulat Beg Oldi. It was impossible to even maintain it or keep it supplied. So a decision was taken to get that garrison to withdraw on foot. So that garrison had withdrawn on foot through a very arduous journey through Sasir, Sosoma, etc., etc. So it was there for the taking for the Chinese, but they did not. What happened after that is that they did not sit there. After the ceasefire, they kept most of the territories that they claimed, but some that they had taken or up to the points to which they had come, including, say, notably in Galwan Valley, not that much further, say about 500 meters further than where they are now, they had come up and they withdrew to some of these locations, possibly because they thought logistically it was difficult to maintain this. Now that, it looks like, is a big regret with the Chinese, because Chinese statements, Chinese scholars' writings have come up again and again saying the same thing, that we made a big mistake. It was a crucial blunder. It was a huge blunder that we withdrew from these territories in Ladakh that we had captured. So maybe some of what's driving China now is that regret, and they think what they won in war, but then gave up for whatever reason, little bit. In fact, a lot of the territories they captured in 1962 in Ladakh, they kept. Everything they captured in Arunachal Pradesh or Nepha then, they withdrew from. But in Ladakh, they did not. In fact, even the area around Pangong, Sirijap, all these areas, they captured right next to the Zangla, they captured. But this they have kept. Some areas they did not keep. Now, if you read this carefully, there is also a book by General J.J. Singh, a former Chief of Army Staff, called the McMahon Line, where he mentions that Chou Enlai actually left a 6-point formula with Jawaharlal Nehru, which also included the 1959 claim line. So now we have a map that I'm giving you that we use with Nayanama's story. That map shows where the Chinese are now and where they had come in 1962. Once again, the same health warning, broad, imprecise maps drawn in thick pen. The thickness of that pen could be maybe a couple of kilometers or more than a couple of kilometers on either side in places. And remember, the fight in Galwan right now is only for about 500 meters. So these are imprecise maps. The second map that I'm again sharing with you is a broad map from Claude Arpi, who is a Frenchman, lives in Pondicherry, but a great scholar on India-China relations, on Tibet, on what India has been doing in that region, what's been happening in Tibet. He has a map. I think it is drawn essentially based on some maps that the CIA had produced at the time of the crisis. Again, an imprecise map. Now, if you look at these maps, then generally you can come to the conclusion that what the Chinese want, one, is essentially what they had captured and vacated in 1962 and have a regret over, because some of these places might have tactical value now, because logistics on both sides are much better and logistics on the Indian side are getting much better. So if you look at all this, maybe I can name some areas, but this is my guesswork. Maybe the Chinese, the area in Depsang Plains, or those petrol points where the Chinese don't let you come in. Now, maybe they want you to stay out, because the idea, because they will now say, look, you were only coming up to here because we didn't assert our claim. But this is within the 1959 claim line. I think a very tiny sliver in Galwan, maybe about 500 meters, the Chinese have claimed that the territory up to the bend in the Galwan river, around where the fight took place between the two sides, that belongs to them. That is only about 500 yards from where they are now. Then in Pangong Tso area, they would like to assert it up to Finger 4, where all the trouble is, and maybe a little bit in Hot Springs area. And I will tell you also why I particularly suspect there is something about Hot Springs, because the Chinese, all Chinese speak in the same language, scholars, journalists, such as they are, everybody. And the party line comes out. So they speak always with a purpose. There is an old Hindi film song, बिना कारण कोई बात नहीं होती, वो बिना कारण के चाइनीज़ नहीं बोलते हैं. सो वहाँ पे वो कुछ बोल रहे हैं, and that is what gives me the indication that Hot Springs is also on their mind, and I will just come to that. So I am reading an interview by Professor Liu Zhongji. Professor Liu Zhongji is a very high-ranking Chinese scholar. He's a scholar at Shanghai University, at a Shanghai think tank. In fact, he's Secretary General of the Research Center for China-South Asia Relations, China-South Asia Cooperation at Shanghai Institute of International Studies, SIIS. He's also a distinguished fellow at many other Chinese think tanks and academic centers in Beijing and Kunming. So he has given a long interview to a website called observer.com. It's been conducted by a Chinese journalist called Wu Likun. Now, we have this interview, and we also have a translation of the interview that Ananthakrishnan, the Hindu's correspondent and probably certainly the best informed Indian journalist on China, has been good enough to share with me. And it's a translation by Professor Hemant Adlakha, who's professor of Chinese at JNU in Delhi, much maligned JNU, and honorary fellow of Institute of Chinese Studies. So when you read this, the highlights of this interview, and again I'll give you a link of the interview, you can read it in detail. Among the things he mentions, first of all, he says that India has been nibbling into Chinese territory, or the territory China considers its own in Ladakh. And he says that if you look at the map of Ladakh, you can see that everywhere India is on the heights, commanding heights is the expression used, and China is in a tactically disadvantageous position. We've let it go on for too long. This anger was getting pent up and we had to respond. Now, that is his view and his version, and he said this summer China took tough countermeasures to this. Then he said that he mentions an area of hot springs, which in Chinese he says in Dianjiao, and he says this hot springs is an area which used to be in Chinese control. Our villagers used to go there. They used to bathe there to cure themselves of skin diseases because it's a sulfur spring. They would even take their cattle to be bathed there to cure them of their skin disease. But where is this hot springs now? It's in Indian control because we were not patrolling it. It was too expensive for our soldiers to go and patrol. The area is inhospitable, and over time local population has become more prosperous, etc., etc. So they don't particularly see the need to go out and defend against Indian encroachment. So we've lost that territory. It's because of this reference there that I think the Chinese have their minds and hearts set on hot springs. And then he goes on to say that once again India is now following a forward policy, very ominous, because that is the line, that is what Nehru had been accused of in 1962, that he keeps sending his forces ahead on the presumption that Chinese will not go to a war. Then he goes on to say that India has given up its fight against the pandemic, but India thinks today that it can get the better of China. And he says that India's strategic calculation is that if China can finalize its determination of line of actual control and the boundary, then India can calm down on this border and then focus on the Pakistanis and fix that problem, or fix the Pakistanis using its superior power and become the preeminent power in South Asia, and use this peacetime to divert resources to building its strength in the Indian Ocean and to challenge the Chinese there. And in fact, he goes on to say that India may want then to divert resources to its navy and control the Chinese lifeline and Strait of Malacca. He doesn't use the expression Strait of Malacca. I am using it because that is what they consider, that is what is considered China's lifeline. So he sees a big strategic plot and thinking behind how India has been approaching this relationship. So if you see all this, then you know the Chinese are not coming from a tactical consideration. The Chinese have strategic, political, diplomatic thought behind it. And once again, 1959 is just an idea, just a line, negotiating point. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs' own website has not put this statement there. This was only spoken by an anonymous spokesperson to an Indian correspondent. Maybe it's meant for Indian audiences. The other thing they said in that one is that they don't recognize the quote-unquote illegal union territory of Ladakh. That doesn't matter so much to me. It's deliberate pinprick, although they haven't said it officially again on the ministry's on their ministry's website. But it's a pinprick because the Chinese have never accepted Kashmir as being part of India. The Chinese have not accepted Kashmir's instrument of accession to India. So to that extent, they can raise that question about Ladakh, but that doesn't bother me so much. What is of interest is what exactly do they mean by 1959? Are they giving you a negotiating position from which you can go back and forth a little bit, and thereby also putting a maximum limit to their own claims? Or this is also just another trial balloon, or what is called in our political discourse a jumla. Ek jumla aur chhod do. Indians will be busy discussing and debating. Meanwhile, let us see what happens on the ground, because both sides are buying time. If I go back to the professor's interview, he in fact says that the big provocation for the Chinese is the pace at which India is building its infrastructure in border areas. And he goes on to say something that I think a lot of the people on the Indian side, border roads and others, will find very flattering. He says sometimes Indians only build their roads at night, border roads, and sometimes they can build up to 1 to 2 kilometers a day in the Himalayas. So if that is the case, I'd say aapke muh mein ghee shakkar, at least we are getting something right.